If you feel like your LinkedIn profile is letting you down with potential contacts, recruiters, or clients, it might not be that you lack the experience to connect with the right people. It could just be the way that you are communicating it as a part of your personal brand. Today, I want to talk about the 5 ways that your LinkedIn profile could be letting you down and what to do about it instead. Grab your cup of tea and let's dive into it. The first problem that you might have with your LinkedIn profile is that your visual brand is letting you down. Your LinkedIn profile is not just your digital resume, it is your professional brand on full display for all of the internet to see. So as the shopfront window for your professional brand, is your LinkedIn profile inviting? Is it engaging? Does it make people want to connect with you? Or is it inadvertently turning people away from your profile and not leaving the ideal impression that you want to be making on the biggest networking platform worldwide? Remember that we love to say that we don't judge a book by a cover, but the science shows that we do, and first impressions can be formed within milliseconds. So, for example, how is your profile photo communicating to a potential contact or a recruiter or client? What is it saying about you? Or how is it unintentionally letting you down? For example, is it very dark? Is it pixelated? Is it poor quality? Does it seem potentially unprofessional? Like, for example, when some people use photos that are clearly from a social engagement, that they have gone to like a party and not necessarily like a work-related party, and they've just cropped an image of themselves from that event instead of actually creating a photo or taking a photo specifically for the purpose of LinkedIn. It can just look a little bit lazy and it can look unprofessional. And another way that it can come across as unprofessional, whether you're doing this or you just maybe haven't gone into a lot of effort with your profile photo, is the way that you are dressed. How is that communicating for your personal brand? Does it match the vibe of your industry? Having said that, as a disclaimer, you don't have to always match the vibe of your industry, because you could be intentionally, as a part of your personal brand strategy, actually trying to be a disruptor in your industry. So maybe you're not trying to follow the really traditional corporate conventions when it comes to your particular field, and you want to come across in a different way. But the point is to be intentional about it and don't be unintentionally unprofessional in your choices that you have made for your LinkedIn profile. The other thing that I personally find doesn't work is when there are multiple people in the photo, because number one, the photo is only really small, so it just, I think, doesn't communicate your face as clearly as it should when you only have a really small space to work with. And also, I think the inclusion of other people is just distracting, and it can also seem unprofessional as well. For example, if it is a photo of, you and your partner, or you and your best friend at an event, that can come across as not being ideal for a professional platform. The other thing that is really important to remember is, what is your banner communicating for you? I personally, as I've talked about on this channel before, don't love the default banners on LinkedIn, because I think it just shows a lack of effort when it comes to your professional brand, and it's just a missed opportunity. It's a chance for you to have an immediate impact in terms of the impression that you are leaving. It's one of the first things that someone that is landing on your profile is going to see. Number 2 is that you could be overwhelming the reader or the visitor to your profile. Remember that as much as you might be attached to the content that is on your LinkedIn profile, that most people that land on your profile are going to be skimming your profile really quickly. So how are you making it a easy experience for them? How are you making your profile easy to digest and having key information pop on the page instead of overwhelming them with content? Because remember that when you confuse them, you lose them. Some of the ways that you can make your profile just a little bit more digestible is to break up big blocks of text. For example, in your About Me or in the descriptions that you might have as a part of your professional experience, how are you to breaking up those paragraphs to be more digestible for your reader. You might also include headlines throughout your About Me or in other sections to be able to break that up further, or sub-headlines as well. You might use, for example, dot points throughout various sections of your profile as well to break up that content even further. I personally also love the use of numbers because that just gives something for the eyes to be able to land on. And that goes for a lot of the content on your LinkedIn profile. If people are skimming, they want to be able to see things that are of value pop on the page. You want to be able to point them in the right direction. So those numbers can really stand out, or names that they recognize can really stand out. Another thing that I think is nice to consider in terms of digesting your profile is the pacing of your text. For example, do you have short sentences along with long sentences just to make your content more dynamic? And do the paragraphs or the different sections that you are communicating in have sort of different weightings and different sizes, just to also make that a more engaging experience for the reader instead of feeling like it is very repetitive or too overwhelming? The number 3 problem for why your LinkedIn profile might not be converting for clients, contacts, or recruiters could just be that they can't actually find you to begin with. So that is why it is really important to consider the search engine optimization strategy of your profile. And I've talked about this in a previous episode as well, if you want to learn more detail on this. But be clear when you are creating the content in your profile about the industry that you want to target or that you want to be aligned with. Then think about the skills that are related to that industry. Considering these aspects are going to help you to form the key words that are most relevant to your profile, and that is going to help you connect with the relevant people in that industry. So when you are creating the content on your LinkedIn profile, make sure that you have these keywords and these key phrases in mind and integrate that into key sections of your profile. For example, throughout your About Me, through your professional experience, through your headline. If you have other sections of your LinkedIn profile optimized, like your education or your courses or other aspects as well, keep in mind the words that you want to be targeting so that when you are making those choices, you are aligned with your search engine optimization strategy and you're not actually including things that could potentially dilute away from that and detract from the strategy that you are trying to strengthen with those search engine optimized words. And when you are integrating your keywords and phrases into the various sections of your LinkedIn profile, remember as much as possible to keep the most important details up front in all of those sections. Because for a lot of those sections, like your About Me, for example, you are only going to see the initial preview related to what you have put into your content. So you want to make sure that the most important words are going to pop on the page for the person that is visiting your profile, and it's not just getting lost in the back of your content, which they may not even get to anyway. And one of the ways that you can make sure that you are really strengthening your SEO strategy for your LinkedIn profile is to consider if you have target jobs in mind, and you can go through the ads that you see for those jobs or the job descriptions and look at the language that they are looking for as a part of that role in the job ad, for example, in those job descriptions, and integrate that into your LinkedIn profile so that you are going to be a stronger match for the capabilities and the skills that they are looking for as a part of those roles. Number 4 is that you are communicating vague claims. I've talked about this a little bit in my earlier episodes on writing your resume and the importance of making sure that you aren't just conveying fluffy claims and statements, that you're adding credibility and substance to those claims. What is the evidence for what it is that you are communicating? And that is where the numbers can really help to add substance to those claims. That is where mentioning particular organizations, names, or bodies that people recognize is also going to add credibility to your LinkedIn profile. And it's also something that the eyes guys can easily land onto because we recognize those terms. Whereas when you land on a LinkedIn profile and it's just full of all of these fluffy terms and it doesn't actually sound particularly strong or unique to that individual, it doesn't have any sort of storytelling that makes it a really compelling professional personal brand, then it just feels like it reads like something that you might have written on ChatGPT or that you didn't actually put in a lot of effort for. Or you might have put in a lot of effort into it, but it's not actually doing anything for you, which is where these little tiny changes can make a big difference to the impact that your LinkedIn profile has with your potential contacts. And I do just want to emphasize that point about storytelling as well, because your About Me in particular is a really nice place to not just have a fluffy statement, which is a few lines that you think is impressive to a potential recruiter, but actually feels really unique to you, that conveys your professional story in a really exciting way, that showcases your personality so that it isn't just completely professional the way that your resume might be, but just has a lot more character to it and really shows someone who is on the other end of your profile that you would be a really great person to connect with and communicate with. It is, after all, a social media platform. And number 5 is that you could be repeating yourself through your LinkedIn profile. So while it is important to consider the search engine optimization strategy that you want as a part of your profile and the keywords and phrases that are important, make sure that you aren't doing this in a way that it comes across as overkill, because it will, number one, not sit well with the search engines themselves, but it also isn't an engaging read for the person that is visiting your profile. Use the various opportunities that you have in your LinkedIn profile, for example, in the descriptions of your professional experience, to highlight the diversity of your skill set. So make sure that you are ticking multiple boxes. Don't just repeat the same day-to-day responsibilities for every role. Use that opportunity to show achievement-orientated highlights that can ideally focus on different things for different areas. And something to think about when you are progressing in your career is how much of your professional experience you actually need to communicate on your LinkedIn profile. There is no obligation whatsoever to include all of your professional history in your LinkedIn profile just because you can. For example, when you communicate the roles that you had in high school or in your earlier career, this starts to dilute the positioning that you might be trying to establish as a part of your professional brand. So if you are trying to establish yourself as a senior executive, then you might like to consider removing some of those earlier roles. Or you can leave those roles on if it paints a really nice picture for the path that is related to the job that you are now in. But keep in mind, when you have too many roles as a part of your profile, you just start to detract from what it is that you most want that reader to pay attention to. And it also could be potentially working against you in terms of search engine optimization if you have a lot of those earlier titles that might not be as relevant on your profile as well. Those tiny changes can have a huge impact on the first impressions that you are leaving with your contacts. For more on how to search engine optimize your LinkedIn profile, then check out my previous episode on this topic. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.